Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in rolling out zero trust network strategies and technologies. With me on today's show are Chris Cleary, Chief Information Security Officer at the Department of Navy, Alma Cole, Chief Information Security Officer, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Brian Campo, Acting Chief Technology Officer, Department of Homeland Security, Junaid Islam, Director of Public Sector at Verizon, Sammy Lane, Director of Technology and Strategy at Okta, and Jim Richburg, Field Chief Information Security Officer at Fortinet. Well, we went crashing into 2020. We were modernizing up and down the stack, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, introducing a whole lot of technology, a lot of it to address zero trust. And then we got even a more complex operating environment. I think all of us probably said to ourselves, boy, I guess this is why, zero trust was invented. And so here we are in this environment. And I got to give it to OMB, by the way, who didn't just come out with an edict, a directive that said, hey, implement this and have it done in 180 days. We all know this is an ecosystem that has to be done. Alma, let's start with you. You're in a very complex environment. You got thousands of trading partners. You have the entire trading public, thousands of employees. Where are you in regards to the state of trying to implement, successfully implementing, no doubt, zero trust in your environment?
Good morning. So with zero trust for us, it's really a journey that we started on a couple of years ago. And I think it's important to point out, so everyone's talking about zero trust as sort of a complete concept, but really it's made up of all sorts of different fundamental building blocks of information security that we've had around, really forever. But now I think we actually have the technology to actually implement all of those principles in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. So for us, it comes from obviously security is the number one priority, but then right behind security for us, where we have a very, very intense operations that we need to maintain across the country, across the world, on a 24/7 basis. And a lot of systems that we're extremely reliant on for our field operations and to keep cargo and trade moving. For us, we start with resiliency, and we pick up on a couple of really critical initiatives that DHS has been pushing in the past. That includes both the CDM initiatives as well as the migration towards the TIC 3.0 initiatives. And I think for us, our zero trust journey has been building on top of those. So a good example for us right now, we're extremely excited about the TIC 3.0 standards and taking what was this common set of IT services that a lot of folks were hosting, either themselves or going out to MTIPS provider, where all the services are kind of bundled in one, a little bit more generic. Now we're breaking a lot of those services apart, taking them sort of piece by piece, and we're able to move them out into the cloud, into SaaS providers that are best of breed for those services, and implement them in a way that provides way more resiliency than having all of our eggs in a legacy TIC basket, for example. But then also, as we implement those and these other cloud security capabilities, we're doing it in a way so that we're extremely explicit on the right user and the system that has the correct level of patching and configuration management, and we're authorizing the systems as well, so that really that user, that system, that whatever unit only has access to view exactly what it needs to view, and it can do that in a way from a routing perspective that's actually incredibly direct, instead of having the old paradigm of, look, you have your inside trusted network and everything on that trusted network is trusted equally, and you have issues there with weakest link, and we're kind of getting rid of that paradigm to where now it's just sort of the one unit that's connecting in, and accesses exactly what it needs to do and nothing else. And if that then there's a breach, or if there's some sort of issue with that one system, then it really, really limits the damage that could be done in those potential scenarios.
Yeah, really tightening up that blast zone. Gone are sort of the guards, gates, and locks, if you will. You really have a framework now, and it's the right place, right person, right capability at the right time. Let's roll over to Brian. I can't imagine that across the department, we just heard about how complex CBP is, and I think a TSA and Secret Service and Coast Guard and CIS, et cetera, interagency. I would say, thank goodness this is a framework. It's a constellation of activities, right, that come together. Where are you in regards to sort of taking it over the top at the department? Where is the department as far as state of zero trust these days?
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, right, from a chief information security officer, you're focusing on that risk reduction, you're focusing on implementing security. I think in the CTO office, we're really trying to develop that strategy. We're trying to understand, how does zero trust fit into all of the IT goals that the CIO wants to do. We're trying to figure out, how do we give guidance, how do we develop frameworks, strategies, reference implementations. We're really looking at that true ecosystem of zero trust. And I think the other piece where we're trying to get to is, we're really trying to tie all the different pieces together, right? You got things like, cloud access security brokers, you've got cloud security gateways. We've got a big initiative to try and move, applications out of the data center and into the cloud. We're looking at options for VPNs, so that we can get better access, more specific access. So from our perspective in the CTO office, we're really trying to develop that strategy, that roadmap, trying to give reference implementations out to the components. You mentioned, a few of the components that we've got at DHS. You've got a CBP, but you've also got a FEMA, right? So they operate very, very differently. They have very different concerns. They've got very different things that they're trying to do with their security, and they've got different operational tempos. So for us in the CTO office, our journey really is trying to understand all of those least common denominators, trying to understand how zero trust can have a positive effect. But then we're also thinking about how the users are interacting with it.
Yeah, no doubt, and trying to make it easy on those users, right? And so it's sort of transparent to them, but it's a good experience to them. But you're making sure that that trust gets established when and if it needs it, at what level it needs it, et cetera, and everything from a FEMA volunteer to a sworn officer at CBP, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've developed our roadmap, one of the things we've tried to do is, we've tried to increase capability as we're reducing risk. We knew VPNs were going to be difficult in the age of COVID. So what we tried to do, one of the first things we looked at was really trying to look at options to reduce the load on our VPN, and really be sort of customer centric as we're thinking about zero trust. How can we increase capability while also reducing risk?
And allow each operating component the flexibility that they need to, based on risk. I'm sure AMA certainly does appreciate that. Chris, how about over at the Department of Navy? You all are up to a lot of things going on over there. Very complex environment. We're hearing about the enduring telework apparatus that you're rolling out, et cetera, et cetera. Give us the state of zero trust at the Department of Navy. I can't imagine that that's not a framework that is very much embraced at that capability, being that you're so complex.
Yeah, and not only embraced, now directed at some point.
Okay.
If for those of you tracking what's happened within the Department of Defense, principally around COVID and pushing people outside of our environments. One of the things we found almost immediately was our capacity, through VPNs, just to try and keep everybody teleworking at home. It just, we choked on it very, very quickly. So as we tried to, introduce more capacity, of course, we came up with this construct of this commercial virtual response, this CVR environment that Microsoft helped us get to, where we were going to allow people to connect directly from their devices, whether it was government furnished equipment or personally owned devices, from wherever they are, directly to the environment without going through any security stacks. Well, immediately we were, that was this idea behind getting to a zero trust construct, which was actually directed by US Cyber Command. They pushed out a planning order to each of the services to say, hey, come up with a use case where you can roll a zero trust environment out to support whatever. So in the Navy's case, we chose the reserve community and sort of like the recruiters community, because they're traditionally lived outside the DoD and to begin with. I mean, they spent almost their entire careers to one degree or another, not within a controlled environment. So we said a perfect use case. And actually they were pretty advanced when it came to it already, because it was the way it's just the way they were stood up to begin with. So the Navy's zero trust construct was principally using one vendor. So we went kind of with this all Microsoft solution to demonstrate that we could set up a zero trust environment. The Army chose a little bit of a different, combination of tools. The Air Force yet again chose a little bit different way of doing it. What we demonstrated is we could really establish a very secure, almost overly secure environment that we could put users in it in the zero trust environment. The guys at NCDoc and Navnet Warcom could almost monitor every keystroke. I mean, it really was connecting people with the information they needed to have in a in a secure way. Because one of the buttons that we pushed, and I say we pushed the believe button when we set up the CVR environment, is we knew in the beginning it was inherently an insecure environment. But the ability to get people teleworking and to sort of get out of the threat zone of COVID, do all the things that we needed to do to enhance social distancing and just kind of get people out of the buildings, we had to weigh that with their ability to be productive. So the CVR environment was this thing that we came and said, we're going to accept a certain amount of risk in this environment because it's not perfect. It's not exactly what we would want. But the idea is to do that and then to transition to the zero trust environment to continue to facilitate this telework. And I think one of the encouraging things that we're finding because of constructs like zero trust, and zero trust really is a construct, it's not a product or, although there's lots of companies that would like to make you believe it's a product. And the other big thing that we're trying to figure out is for, the Navy, the Department of the Navy being this massive thing. Well, not everybody's going to be able to necessarily be within this Office 365 environment to have that zero trust capability. So in other instances, we got to think about how to architect our zero trust a little bit differently. And what we're finding is the cornerstone of that is identity. So we're really kind of pushing an identity strategy through the department, because for us to really get to a true zero trust environment, you need identity. Where in the Microsoft environment, it's provided for us by Microsoft. We use sort of an identity construct provided to us in that environment, so that requirement is satisfied. Where for those people who are going to have to live outside of that Microsoft environment, well, now we got to come up with another way to ensure their identity is solid and then architect it. But the idea over time is to migrate to some form of the M365 setup. And so far, we've been very happy with it. Fleet Cyber is really the guys that have the rose pinned to their chest to sort of execute the plan order, and they're doing a great job of it. So yeah, we're really happy so far.
You can't, that's this architecture being embraced couldn't have happened at a sort of a better time, if you will, under the circumstances as the environments have gotten certainly a lot more complex. Junaid, how about at Verizon? You all are right smack in the middle of this, and I want to applaud Verizon and all of the partners for really stepping up and making sure that the experience that needed to be happen for the entire, public sector community was there and available so that they could keep doing the work that they do. How about at Verizon? What's it look like over there as far as the introduction of zero trust and enabling that capability inside of your ecosystem?
Great, thanks for the question. From a zero trust perspective, the first thing I would say is there's really two implementations for category: zero trust as a product and zero trust as a service. At Verizon, we focus on zero trust as a service, and we integrate it into the wireline and wireless networks. And where we fit into the large tapestry within the federal government is one of the challenges the government faces is contractors, consultants, suppliers who work outside its boundary but are connecting in. And as everybody knows from a state-sponsored cyber attack, while federal facilities are very secure, the weak link is all of those little companies that supply you. It's very hard for them to, lock down. So we have been focusing on building zero trust as a service. So the vendors, contractors, consultants, as they connect in, they are secure. And we implement the entire zero trust stack with strong identity verification, role-based access, as well as cryptographic controls. And we think zero trust as a service actually is going to become one of the most important implementations, because as we look long-term in terms of how people are going to work, I think we're going to get over this COVID thing, that's for sure. But I think this, whether it's, you call it work from home or distributed working, that's here to stay for, well, I think for the rest of our lifetime. And I think the ability to integrate zero trust into your wireline and wireless service is key. And it's going to be key to also the Department of Defense and federal government pushing out the zero trust model through their ecosystem as they implement zero trust within their facilities. So we need both. And that's really Verizon's goal.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that everyone is glad to hear that. And no doubt, as Chris talked about, sort of that enduring telework capability there to sort of broaden outside of the guards, gates, and locks, really important. Sammy, we was mentioned about how ID, identity management, is certainly a key element of the entire zero trust architecture. What's going on at Okta to sort of make sure that's available, seamless, et cetera, so that it can be part of the picture?
Yeah, that's one of the tenets is that identity is the new security perimeter in a way. If you look at how modern technology gets consumed, it is quite different. And as such, it's really about giving the right access to the right people in the right context, and then evaluate that continuously. So in that sense, that zero trust journey often starts by getting that identity house in order. Now, we saw this massively when all this work from home tenets came into play this last spring, and some of our customers were saying that was the biggest unrequested test of their VPN capacity, both from licensing and from technology perspective that they've ever tested. But those agencies and those customers who were further along in the journey already at that point found that it didn't change that much when those restrictions came into play. If they had already taken that tenet of saying, well, let's look at the user and their device and look at the full context of the access, then we can actually make better access control decisions, and we can consume new technology much more rapidly than in the traditional model. So in that sense, those forces that had been moving into the same direction all just lurched forward very, very rapidly. And we saw that federal, state, and local government level, where even counties who had a program in place to move towards the zero trust model over the next 18 months, all of a sudden found themselves in one weekend having to implement that. And we saw a lot of these projects, spearhead ahead at massive speeds, both in the industry and in the agencies.
All of a sudden, it's all hands on deck in a situation like that, no doubt. But even prior to that, as somebody was pointing out, these tertiary systems, we certainly learned with OPM and several of these other situations, that occurrence that a lot of these environments, you can't trust anyone, right? This whole concept behind a zero trust and this continual authorization type of situation, which I think is really important to just instill that, bake that into the ecosystem and just sort of take that whole issue off the table. All right, we're gonna take a short break and we'll be right back. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.